90% of the things that you do in that lead generation setting aren't going to work. 90% of the conversations you have aren't going to lead anywhere. But the 10% that do, that is enough to make you extremely wealthy.
What does that tell you, though? That tells you that if 10% of your conversations are only 1 or 2 conversations, you need more volume.
Right.
Got to have more conversations. That's the only way to make more money.
Just because, you and a friend paired up and then you kind of created a logo, that's not a team. More times than not, it turns into a disaster.
Often, the top producers are not great team leaders, and great team leaders are not top producers.
That's right.
Because you're putting on a completely different hat. We see this all the time, right? The top producers, the people who make $100,000 a year, whatever, they get to that 100,000 and then they shut it down. They think, all right, I'm good. You can press past that, and we suggest that you do. And if you keep up the lead generation, income will start to flow, and then you can start to really, decide how you're living your life.
Okay, let's talk about our 20-year blueprint for a successful real estate business for you as an agent and as you grow. This is something that I'm passionate about because, so many agents are looking towards, quick fixes to their business and looking to create results quickly. But how do we create a business that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to be able to move in any market? And especially as, we're approaching a time where there's a lot of uncertainty from real estate agents that, a lot of them are thinking like, do I get out of the business? Is this business going to be sustainable? Is AI going to take over everything? People are concerned, and I don't think, there's any reason. The sky isn't falling, but you do need to build a business that can be adaptable and that will stand the test of time. So we're going to dig into that. The first thing would be, before we get started. Yes.
I am, and I haven't even told you this yet.
Oh.
I am 50 hours into this. My golf buddies, we're doing this fast, okay?
All right.
And it's the Dana White 86-hour fast.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, why are we doing this? I got talked into doing it with them. I'm 50 hours in.
So you haven't eaten anything?
I haven't eaten anything in 50 hours.
Okay.
And if I pass out, tell Flo to give me a sugar packet or 2 because I'm going to need it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so I'm 50 hours into the Dana White fast.
Are you grumpy?
No, I'm not grumpy.
Or you might be in that phase of a fast, because I do 72-hour fasts, but you could be in that phase where you're just like, hey, I'm almost there.
I ran 8 hours. I ran 8 miles yesterday, and that was not a good idea.
Yeah, that was idiotic, actually.
And the day before that, I ran 12. So those were not great choices.
No.
But other than that, I feel okay.
Okay. Why are you doing that?
I just got talked into it. They were like, hey, we're doing this. Do you want to do it with me? I'm like, nope. And they were like, come on. And then they kind of, called me a few names, and I was like, fine, I'll do it. I don't back down from a challenge.
If you pass out, we'll know
sugar
why.
packet.
All right. Okay. So first, make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment on the episode. Let's dig in. So the first thing is you have to have, you have to stick with the fundamentals. And this is one of the things that just drives me crazy with real estate agents is they're always looking like, what's the next big, what's going to make it easier? Should I do this? Should I do that? And it's like, first of all, number one, work works, period. And so you have to stick with the things that work over the span of time. For instance, your focus on lead generation, what you're doing to get new business to you, your focus on consistent marketing and staying top of mind. One of the things that's a fundamental to me that I don't understand why real estate agents don't, they'll research new lead sources or go sit in a 2-hour meeting with a, potential new lead source, but they won't do their weekly email. To me, that's a fundamental that it's like, hey, look, that's a way to stay top of mind, to nurture your database with your sphere of influence. That way it sets up your business for success in the long run. And they'll sacrifice that for, shiny object syndrome. So stick with the fundamentals on the marketing side, world-class customer service, your transaction management, all of those things, those fundamental aspects, make sure you're maximizing the fundamentals before you switch over into like paid lead sources or whatever the new, the shiny new thing is.
Yeah. I mean, this is why get rich quick schemes are so popular, right? Everybody wants to find the fastest way to success. And sometimes it's blocking and tackling. So they call it. Everybody wants to know the best lead source, the best paid lead source.
Yeah.
What's going to get me so many closings so quickly or whatever. Fact of the matter is, you've got to pick up the phone in this business.
That's right.
It's bottom line. You've got to make your calls and set appointments. And this is big business agnostic. It's the same for mortgage professionals as it is for real estate agents. This is, you're going to spend 40 hours a week on this job.
Yes.
And if you don't, then you're not going to make any money. And that's just the bottom line. And everybody wants the fastest way to success, but sometimes it's just time spent.
Well, one of the things, we get this question a lot. It's like, hey, what's the, what should I, do this or pay for these leads or whatever? And so we have kind of a little thing that we go through. But the first thing that I ask is, have you maximized your time management? Are you setting, through for sale by owners and expireds and open house, are you setting these number of appointments per week and maximizing and doing an open house every week before you go spend money? And what do you think the answer is to that? It's almost always no,
never.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not maximizing. So
if they're honest.
Yeah, if they're honest. So if you're an agent, like, there is no quick and easy in this business, right? There is no golden ticket. There is no silver bullet. There is only hard work. And I would say, really, especially in today's market, the people who are willing to pursue excellence are going to far exceed the people who are just kind of doing it, right? And I think you could get away with kind of doing it in previous markets. I don't think that's the case right now. It may become the case again, but you really got to work to make things happen right now.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing, while I'm saying that, is also simultaneously be open to new opportunities, strategies, and lead sources. And let me kind of give you the caveat, because it sounds like I'm being talking out of both sides of my mouth. It's really an 80-20, okay? So as long as you are maximizing the stuff that you're doing now, right, and you're doing it effectively, 20% of that time, energy can be dedicated to trying something new. And I think you should try something new, because it could be a really good lead source for a period of time, but you can't abandon the fundamentals. And I'll tell you a story. I was talking to a real estate agent recently that's thinking about coming on to our brokerage, and she was talking about, she kind of got in a honey hole. She was working for a builder, and she was doing $12 million a year, and she was, getting a 2.25% GCI in that $12 million a year. So she was making great money. And what happened is the builder then hires, his wife gets her real estate license. And so now all that business is gone immediately. Now, so she's basically in this position where she's starting over. And you as a real estate agent should know how to go back to those fundamentals, right? Develop that skill set, that base level skill set, so that doesn't happen to you. And I realize probably what happened is she got really, really busy on the customer service side of things and really didn't have to do lead generation. So anyway, that's what happened. So
yeah. I mean, trying new things is great, and I think you should. And sometimes it's just trying something that doesn't cost any money. And I think that while you're getting started, I think that's the key. Is like, don't focus on lead sources that cost money. Try to do things the free way. Pick up the phone, do open houses, do for sale by owners, stuff like that, and find whatever works for you and exploit that lead source with the time you do have, and then try other lead sources for that 20%.
Yeah, but don't just abandon all of those other things because you think this is easier. And I can tell you from experience, we've tried everything. We've done everything. There is nothing that is as great as what they're selling you.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, honestly, you can't abandon anything, because the minute you do, it's going to be 2 months down the road when you've got stuff under contract that's going to pay you for the next 30 to 60 days. The minute you stop, that third month, you're not going to have anything. That's
exactly right. Okay. Number 3. So, okay, let me go back that just to it's like 80-20, 80% on fundamentals, 20% of that time can be spent on experimenting with new lead sources to see if they work, but don't go beyond that, especially as you're in a build phase of your business. Number 3, get comfortable with the numbers. First, your conversion ratios, understanding calls, how many calls you need to make to appointments set to appointments met, because you're probably going to have a 50-50 no-show or reschedule. And then also how many appointments are taken to get a client. And usually you're going to run between 10 to 16%. And I was thinking about this on the drive over. One of the things I think it's important for people to understand, whether you are in in the social media world and you're doing your marketing that way, whether you are doing lead generation, 90% of the things that you do in that lead generation setting aren't going to work. 90% of the conversations you have aren't going to lead anywhere. But the 10% that do, that is enough to make you extremely wealthy. And so as long as you have that mentality going in, understanding that most of those things aren't going to lead anywhere, and maybe they'll lead somewhere down the road and they can build your database, but really it's only about 10% of things that actually work.
But what does that tell you though? That tells you that if 10% of your conversations are only 1 or 2 conversations, you need more volume.
Right.
You got to have more conversations. That's the only way to make more money.
That's exactly right.
Talk to more people. And look, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Like there's plenty of people buying and selling. No real estate agent is going to get it all.
That's right.
So there are people out there for you, but you've got to have more conversations to find them, because if it's already 10%, the volume has to increase. That's the only variable to get you more income.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing though is the second thing is just understanding what GCI is, your gross commission income, and then that when you understand your GCI, or sort of your gross profit that's coming into your business, then you can understand how much of that needs to be set aside for operational expense, how much of that needs to be set aside for potential marketing or lead spend. And as your GCI grows, that percentage will grow, and then you can invest in new things. Like I was talking to an agent the other day, and they are bringing over a social media marketing person, right? And I said, hey, that's great. Just right now, where you are in your business, don't exceed 10% of your GCI on that hire, right? And so he goes, no, yeah, that we're 5% of the GCI. I said, that's fantastic. And so just understanding those numbers will benefit you. And so you'll know when not to overspend, or you'll need to know kind of where you are in the stage of your business and how much you can spend on things.
Yeah, one little warning shot here. First of all, consider your GCI as what you get after your broker split. I think that's the easiest way to think about it. You could think about it as what is before, and just
I think of it as after, though.
Think of it as after. And then after that, the first thing I would do is set aside money for taxes. So many real estate agents don't think about tax time. You're 1099, come to the end of the year, you get this big tax bill you weren't expecting. It just totally kills your momentum going into January, February, March. Think about that first. Set that aside into an account, and then take whatever's left and break it up and spend it where you think you need to spend it. But always consider taxes, because most agents forget about that as a self-employed person.
Yeah, that's great advice. The other thing is understanding how to read a P&L. And I think it's good at very early on to have a business bookkeeper, which you can get for not that much money to sort of manage your books, that you have a separate business account, right? You need to have a separate checking account that you're running your business expenses out of. But understanding how to read a P&L, where your money's going, I think is incredibly effective as you begin to scale. Yep. And so building that foundation, fundamental part of it will help you. And the more you see it, the more you understand it. And I can tell you, I remember being a early on business owner and started getting into P&Ls, and I'm like, I'm looking at it might as well be hieroglyphs, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could learn QuickBooks. There's a lot of great resources. While your business is simple and small, you can easily learn QuickBooks enough to do your own books. But if it's just not something that interests you, right. And I would say put it off on a CPA to manage and a bookkeeper to manage, because if it's going to take you too much time, and you're not going to be spending that time doing lead generation and all the stuff you're supposed to be doing to grow your business, then it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. If it's something you can do quick and easy, like numbers come easy to you, fine, knock it out. But get another person to help you. Just like when we talk about transaction management, right? Get somebody to help you, because you need to be focusing on getting new business. Yeah,
that's right. So don't spend an inordinate amount of time. For me, that's in my drudgery zone. I don't want to touch, I'm happy to read a P&L. And I do want to understand and do my best to understand all the numbers that are in the business. However, I'm not going to be the one doing the entries for that.
And you do need to understand the numbers in your business. So if you have a bookkeeper or somebody's doing it for you, just make sure you get a report at the end of each month, and you do look at it and make sure, hey, I know where the money's divvied up. I know where it's going. Mm-hmm. I know what's working. So let's say you are spending money on a lead source, and let's say you're spending 20% of your GCI on it. Well, if it's not getting you more than that back, then it's not worth it. So
That's exactly right.
think about that.
The other thing is, the amount of the percentage of your GCI that needs to go towards education. And this is what I would tell you is to continually be educating yourself. And I would even say, go to the conferences, right? If it's in San Diego or Denver or Nashville or wherever it is, okay? Go ahead and go to the real estate conference. And here's why I tell you that. You're going to make connection with high quality individuals who are also spending money, right, to be there. And you're going to start to get referrals from those people, right? Because as you broaden your network across the United States, you can send people to them and they can send people to you and all of that. There's money in all of that. And the reason I can tell you that I've done, I think in the last 6 months, I've had 4 relocations that have reached out to me for people that are moving to Nashville. That's a considerable part of, 4 transactions is a lot of money. And these are people that I have met through networking conferences and things like that. Yeah. So it's a really good thing to spend money on.
I would say don't be one of those agents that's just bouncing around at conferences all the time, but definitely find ones that interest you and it's definitely worth it.
I'm more about going to the ones that are in different places because like the local networking things, okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with them necessarily. I think they can be good. But I'm not as worried about those as I am the national ones, right? That's where those can really turn into money.
That's right.
Okay. Number 4, understanding how to scale and specifically your delegation blueprint or your plan to delegate appropriately. And so the way that we teach is basically you have sort of 4 stages. The first stage is 0 to 100K, which is just, it's a grind, right? To kind of get things moving in that process in 0 to 100K. So you're gutting it out. And I'd say the first thing you need to do is get a TC that you pay on a per transaction basis to get to that 100K. But just understanding, okay, after that, then we're starting to look at when and where are we going to delegate and what are our steps to delegate. And so the number 2 is where we call the top producer. You typically need, depending on your number of transactions, to get you in that state, right? Depending on where you're making money, you need 1 or 2 realtor assistants. And these are people who are young, that are in the business, that are there to learn, and you can pay them a percentage of the transaction as you start to scale up and do more transactions. Because there's just a lot of running around that needs to be done in terms of first of all, from a contractual perspective, as well as signs and lock boxes and any marketing that needs to be done and showing sheets. And I just can tell you, when you get real busy in that top producer, you need a couple of people that you can, 1 or 2 people that you can delegate to as you start to scale. And also you can delegate them you can pay them on a per transaction basis.
Yeah. I think definitely keeping lead generation in your purview for as long as possible until you've built a team and they're all closing their own transactions. Keeping lead generation yourself as long as possible. But then after that, it's like showing assistants. You got, people that doing final walkthroughs, inspections, all these other things, paperwork for transaction management. All those things can be delegated. Right. And we get this pushback all the time when we get a busy agent who's like, "Hey, I can't delegate showings because then they're going to think they don't matter, or I don't have the time for them." That's not the case. You're setting the stage up front. You're setting the stage in the buyer consultation that, hey, I do have a set of assistants and I use them at various times. I want you to meet them, bring them to the consultation. People will understand. Not everybody's time is unlimited, and nor is the buyer's time unlimited. So they're going to understand if you send Brandon to do a showing, or you send Olivia to do a showing. It's something that's understood from the front.
Right. And then when you get to, so basically just understanding, where to delegate there as a top producer. And then you might want to just kind of live there. That's a really good place to be, because the second you switch over to team leader, okay, and that's where you're bringing people in that are expecting leads, and they're going to be working the phone, and you might have an ISA, and you're just kind of that's a whole different set of circumstances, and you've got a lot of upfront lead spend. So it's a significant expense when you go into that to really do the team leader thing right.
And honestly, I think they're 2 different people.
Yeah,
I think often, this is not universally true, but often the top producers are not great team leaders, and great team leaders are not top producers.
That's right.
Because you're putting on a completely different hat to be a team leader than you are a top producer. And usually the egos and the things that made you a top producer are not, they don't translate into team leader.
Yeah. And this is my gripe, really with real estate agents, because I encounter this all the time. And some of you may be offended by this, but just because, you and a friend paired up and then you kind of created a logo, that's not a team. Okay. And as a matter of fact, most of the time, my biggest caution to people who go into that, because more times than not, it turns into a disaster, because it's like, okay, well, all of a sudden, you get a couple of months in a row where, Julie's doing 5 transactions a month and Sarah's just doing 1. And then we're splitting it 50-50 because that's what we agreed to at the very beginning. And then Julie's getting upset. She's like, hey, I'm kind of pulling all the weight, so on and so forth. Right. So if you're going to do a team like that, which I don't even call a team, it's just a delegation of responsibility. Yeah. Right. And then you can just work out a percentage like, hey, you're going to do these things and I'm going to do these things and I can delegate. But I would caution you about that and caution you about the whole like team logo thing is really about ego more than it is anything else. So just, and really it's completely irrelevant from a marketing perspective. I think in most cases, you're better off sticking with your company logo because it's more recognizable than whatever you put on Canva. Because whenever somebody sees your company logo, they're going to think of you. They're not thinking of that particular agent, and they're going to see that more than they're going to see your individual Canva logo. So I know that's going to offend some of you. That's fine. But I'm just saying, like, really think about it before you get into these situations.
When you become a team leader, more of your time is spent with like policies and procedures, dealing with, complaints or issues, recruiting, all of these types of things, because you're going to run into situations that you haven't documented, and then how do you handle them? So you've got to make a judgment call. People won't like it. You'll have to deal with their complaints. Again, you're pretty much your only job at that point becomes not lead generation, but recruiting to bring in more agents. So it's just a completely different your job responsibility.
You're driving production for other agents who are never going to be you. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
They're not going to be,
and that's usually
go ahead.
That's usually the struggle for the top producer. Yeah. They're not you. And they want them, you want them to be you, but that's just not the case.
Yeah. You want them as like, why aren't they as hungry as I am? Why aren't they as whatever? And so it's one of those deals where you have to sort of understand that human psychology and have a high level of emotional intelligence. You've got to be shoulder to shoulder with them during lead generation time. And so, it's just a different skill set. Okay. And so a lot of people shouldn't make, maybe can't make that transition or shouldn't make that transition.
Yeah. But I mean, others do it and they do it great.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fourth is the broker owner, right? And moving to that level. And again, that's one that needs to be taken under consideration because that's a whole other that's a different ball of wax too. So like the team leader, you're going to have a lot more operational responsibility, a lot more compliance responsibility. And so, and really as a broker owner, you're just recruiting.
Yeah. Right? I would really caution you as two people who own a brokerage sitting right before you. I could say, I would really caution you before taking that step because that's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. And you're running not just an individual like self-employment business, but you're running a full business, and it takes a significant amount of time from your daily activity to do. And it's a grind.
Right. And I think really, for most people, there's a sweet spot somewhere in there for you, depending on your personality type. But I think a lot of times for agents, they kind of get their ego caught up in, wanting to tell people that they're a broker owner. We have that a lot where agents get their broker's license just so that they can say they're a broker in the conversation with the realtor on the other side.
And I know what you're thinking. You're like, hey, well, look, every 20% of every transaction is going to the broker. I can tell you most of that is eaten up with stuff you provide back to agents because it is going to get the technology platforms are getting infinitely more expensive. All the things that you're providing agents to be competitive in the marketplace are more expensive, and a lot of that goes right out the door. And what doesn't is really kept for months where sales are down or you have a market like you have now. And so just caution you before taking that step.
Well, I think the focus there, and we're kind of rabbit trailing a little bit, but I think the focus for a lot of agents, they were like, oh, I want passive income.
Yeah, it's not passive.
There's no such thing as, in this business, it's active income always, right? And, maybe you get to a place where you can hire a managing broker, but again, they're not going to be you, and you've got to put these things into place, and it's going to take a long time really to get it there, but it isn't passive. And as a matter of fact, one of the hardest things I think as you're sort of coming up as a broker is, you're going to have, your top agents cashing some significant checks, and you're kind of going, man.
Yeah, I can guarantee you a top producer is making more than a
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. Number 5, and this is what I'm going to tell you just for longevity in your life, right? In your business and your life, is prioritizing what's important. And it's very, real estate for a lot of people can be addictive because there's an excitement as far as doing the deal, especially when you get in a busy season, and you can make, look, you get in some really good markets, you can make $500,000 to $1 million a year in this business if you really start cranking through some transactions, and depending on price points. And so it can get addictive to where you become absent from the things that matter most, or you're at dinner and you're answering your phone all the time. And that's why that delegation skill that we were talking about is important to understand when and where to delegate, because you need to keep your family intact. And I can tell you from as an experienced father who has a couple of adult children at this point, that time goes by so quickly, especially when you hit like 10 years old. That 10 to 18 goes super fast. And if you are spending too much time on doing deals and being gone all the time and on the phone all the time, you're going to miss that tiny window of time that you have with the things that are most important in your life. And so just make sure that as you're building, that you make time for what's important first.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what causes it, but that 0 to 6 seems like it's an eternity, and like 6 to 13, 14, 15 seems like it's just gone.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, because when you're 0 to 6, it's 0 to 6, it's like, it's all encompassing, right? Your whole life is about them. And it's like after dinner, and then it's it's bath time, and then it's reading time, and you got to lay down with them for a minute and whatever. And then they got to wake up in the morning at 7 and they got to be at school. Right. And so it's just all encompassing. And then once they start to get into that preteen teen, then they start to have
a little bit of their own life.
They have their own life. Right. And they don't need to be watched all the time, and they can make their own lunch. And so all of these things. And then, man, I will tell you, 13 to 18 is a rocket ship, because they really have their own life at that point. And so just make sure you understand that and make time for what's important.
Yeah. It's not easy and sometimes maybe even feels impossible to shut it down by 5:30 or 6 as an agent.
Yeah.
And early on in your career, it might be something that's not a good idea to shut down at 5:30 or 6.
Yeah.
But the whole goal is to get to a point in your business where you decide who you work with.
That's right.
And we always want you to do that, but sometimes you just need to take what you take just to have some income coming in. But we want you to get to a point where you're choosing who to work with, and you're choosing when you work with them, and you are creating your boundaries, your space, your hours, and people will respect it. And people will start to notice that, all right, this must be a good agent that could shut down when they want to, and only show when they have availability.
What I can tell you just from experience, doing this for a long time, is you really can shut down at 5 or 5:30 and I say there's 2 exceptions. One of them would be a multiple offer situation. One of them would be a negotiation situation, right? But even if if you make those exceptions, you still have the majority of those evenings available to invest in your family. And so, just have those couple of exceptions, but generally speaking, 5:30, you can really shut it down, and put your phone down, have dinner with your family. And I would say make it a focus to do all that stuff, because that's the stuff that's going to make your life worth living for the long run. Also, if you want to have good relationships with your kids once they leave the house, it's really imperative. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So the other thing would be, just your health choices, your food choices, all of those stuff, and just having an amount of self-discipline, because that's the other thing that you don't want to do, is you don't want to finish this from a 20-year perspective in poor health and having a heart attack, right?
Not a good trade-off.
It's not a good trade-off, right? And so make sure that you're making choices good choices for your mental and physical health. Keep a good exercise routine. Keep a good food routine. And that's going to create longevity for you and learning how to manage the emotional part of it. Okay. Final words.
Yeah. I mean, I think just take it from us. Look, we've been in the business a long time and we want you to be successful.
Yeah.
We had to learn a lot of this the hard way. So we're trying to pass on some of this as like, hey, think about these things as you're starting your career or, as you're still early in your career, because I can promise you the minute that we see this all the time, right? The top producers, the people who make $100,000 a year, whatever, they get to that 100,000 and then they shut it down. They think, all right, I'm good. You can press past that. And we suggest that you do. And if you keep up the lead generation, income will start to flow, and then you can start to really, decide how you're living your life.
That's right.
Whether, if you are shutting it down at 5, or if you go on vacation, you turn off your phone, which is possible, by the way, as an agent. Just stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding what season you're in and when you may have to dig in a little bit, when you can kind of back off, but all of that's incredibly important. All right, guys, as always, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we will see you next week. Thanks.
Bye.